Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. So The Emperor's Soul is like it's like a two and a half. It's kind of a sequel novel to Elantris, but it's really just a short story novella. It's one of the novellas around Elantris. But it's really, really interesting because it takes place on a different continent and we're dealing with an entirely different not entirely different magic system, but a different magic system that actually leans more into, like it kind of lends more understanding to the Elantrian magic system as a result. So it's just really, really cool. It's one of Brandon's best short stories, in my opinion, and I really, really dig it. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. But first, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you're interested, check out the Patreon. You can get some early access and some reactions and stuff down there. So the link is in the description. And as always, let's begin. So, Emperor Soul. So cool. Like, I'm surprised I didn't have a greater attachment to it my first read through because of how much it leans into artistic philosophy and a lot of philosophies that I actually really agree with. So it's kind of fascinating that I didn't grasp onto that immediately. But the Emperor's Soul is very cool. So we are dealing with this magic system on not the other side of the planet, but on a different continent, a different empire than in Elantris. So the magic system here essentially has to do with rewriting the spiritual existence of different objects. So it's kind of a more I guess difficult version of soul casting. It's a far more precise version of soul casting in a lot of ways, and it's very, very cool. I really like the nature of this magic system. It is probably the most difficult magic system. I think Cell in general, just as a planet, and the way the shards, shattering, the what happened to the shards has affected the planet in such a way that it has created what has to be the most complicated magic systems in the entire Cosmere. Because in order to be a good Elantrian, in order to know Aeon Door and be proficient and powerful, you have to be incredibly smart. You have not necessarily incredibly smart, you just have to be very learned in that you know exactly every single glyph, every single modifier, every single way in which those modifiers need to be used. You just have to have this like 10th level encyclopedic knowledge of this language, I guess we'll call it. So it's quite similar in the with the Fjordell too, like the way the Darkor monk stuff works. We don't have greater detail, but there's something somehow they manipulate their bones and stuff in a way that is also similar to Aeon Door and soul stamping, in that it is similar to the glyphs and the hieroglyphs and the I guess the language they use, we'll call it, is very similar to the visual formation of their culture, of their localized area, essentially. So they have to basically devise a language from a visual understanding of the geography of a given location in order to access the door through methods of connection that is very prominent throughout the planet. So it is just dramatically complicated to learn it. It's not like lashing where you just learn how to lash a couple times and you get it. It's the concept. You have to basically learn an entire other language and learn how to manipulate that language and just every single way possible to do anything. So I think it's very, very interesting. And I think probably soul stamping might be one of the more difficult ones because it appears to have this level of interpretation to it. So in its simple form, it's used to basically take a blank vase that has, that looks basically lame, and then change its history to say that it was crafted by a master pottery maker, like with great embellishments and like all this stuff or whatever. So you change its history to make it a beautiful piece of pottery instead of just this basic piece of pottery. So you have to know about the material's history, and like all that kind of stuff. So I think it's one of the more intensely complicated magic systems ever. But some of the effects that it can create are amazing and unlike any other effects in the Cosmere. So it's just one of the most fascinating magic system setups like just out there. It's just so cool. So we get introduced to this really interesting character, Shy, who is a forger, who basically is a thief who will replace like masterworks of art with her forged versions of them. And for her personally, the idea and the interest in it is not so much this idea of smuggling or stealing priceless art. It's more so tricking people into like admiring her art as though it is the original works of these masters and stuff. Because she basically learns as part of her personal philosophy that like the greatest work of art is to basically be able to mimic the great works kind of thing. So it's like if you can mimic what's her name, Mona Lisa, if you can do a forgery of that and hang it in the Louvre and have everyone worship it basically the way they do the original without anyone ever knowing, then that's like the greatest thing ever, because like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and this is the idea being taken to like the nth degree. So I just think that as a philosophy and as an idea is pretty cool. It's kind of fascinating. I mean, granted, I don't know where I would fall on that, the for or against that kind of idea, but just in general, I think is a kind of an interesting idea, just period. It's kind of a fun, fascinating type of philosophy. So the idea that these factions that exist within the government are basically trying to cover up the assassination of the emperor by healing his body and having Shai try to recreate his soul, I think is just a fascinating kind of setup to create a story around, because it allows it to remain very, very like bottled. It remains essentially in mostly one room. Like you have very minimal characters. I think this could be adapted effortlessly. I think it could be adapted so beautifully. Like it would make a great simple movie, or like a mini, or even a short movie kind of thing. Like it doesn't even have to be very long. But neither here nor there. I think Emperor Soul is like, it takes all the best parts of the things that Brandon put in Elantris, and it just kind of pluses them like entirely. We have a minimal cast, but every single character that we kind of get to know in the cast is very interesting. Specifically, Shai and Galtona, I think they're very, very interesting characters. I would really like to see what happens to Galtona later. I like the fact that we have this whole like battle of philosophies, and that Shai kind of convinces Galtona of these different kind of ways of thinking and stuff, and it has such a profound effect on him. And the way she learns about the Emperor through researching his history in order to try to recreate his soul, the different things that are part of that process are very, very fascinating, and they're very subtle things that you wouldn't think about. There are like tangential motivations for things that he would do that are like related to these other innocuous things that are just like he knows this or thinks this, so it causes this decision type of thing. So just that idea is really, really interesting to me. It's a very fascinating kind of psychology mixed with a magic kind of thing to do. So I just thought that creation was very original, very cool. And it is very much, it's later. Like Brandon wrote Emperor Soul later, not like right after Elantris. So the difference in quality is actually very apparent. So it's really cool. So it actually makes me look forward to Elantris 2 that much more. So I think Emperor Soul is probably, actually, I don't know. I haven't reread Dawn Shard yet, so I can't say for sure if I think it's better than that one. But I do think it's probably better than like Secret History, even though I adore Secret History. I think it might be my favorite Brandon novella. Like I think it might be my favorite Cosmere novella that he's written. So it's really, really cool. I love the characterization. I love the character work. I love the pacing. I love the exploration of the magic. I love the way it works. I love the overall results. I love that she like made the Emperor a better person without having to completely change who he was. She made him a better person through the motivations of things that already existed in his life. So it's just like the most subtle, beautiful kind of art that she's done. And like the idea of imitation being the most sincerest form of flattery just kind of like takes this entire idea of everything Shai does to this whole other level for me. It's just so good. I just love it so much. So yeah, I'm descending into full rant and ramble, which is always fun. But yeah, I'm just going to repeat myself over and over. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. I think Emperor Soul is great. I think it's Brandon's probably his best short story slash novella he's written, and I think it's one of my favorite explorations of a just a couple of characters. It's my favorite exploration of a magic system that he's done, and I think it's probably one of it's probably my most favorite in terms of complicated magic systems he's made so far, because holy crap, like I couldn't imagine the levels of years of study, intense study you'd have to go through just to become a mildly proficient like soul stamp user. I don't know. Like to even that's not even to mention like blood sealing or anything like that, being a flesh forger or anything like that. Just like you could literally go to school for 60 years trying to learn how this stuff works and still come out on the other end of that as an absolute amateur. Like it is so interesting and just overly complicated. So I love it. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. What do you all think of Emperor's Soul? Do you think it's as awesome as I do? Do you like the dramatically complicated nature of the magic system? Let me know about that in the comments down below. And as always, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you're interested, check out the Patreon where you can get some early access stuff and some uncuts and probably some reactions and that kind of stuff. And you can, of course, support the channel there. So yeah, I really appreciate you watching, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.